Sending the stream now.
I don't have it yet, but I'll just keep refreshing. We'll have to delete that other one.
I've done it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can see it now on the.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds like it's working fine.
Yep.
Is that working okay for you now? You don't have the echo anymore?
I think so. Yep, that's fine.
Okay. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is Yanni and my first live stream in a while, and I am running the show as a noob streamer. Normally we have somebody else doing this for us. So if there's any problems here, I apologize. And if you're watching live, please say hello so we know that you're watching, and also tell me if it's all working well. So this is our first of, we plan on going live fortnightly to discuss all things fitness, things that stand out at us, and just have a candid discussion, answer questions. So if you're watching, please say hello so that we know that you are there, and so that I know that I'm getting this stream correct and I'm doing it the right way. Now, today we're talking about hello first. My name's Rad Burmeister. I'm one of the founders of Uni Gym. That's my brother Yanni. Say hi, Yanni.
Hi.
Tell us if you can hear us. Tell us if our sound's coming through properly, because I just had a failed attempt 5 minutes ago. So anybody that's watching this, that watched the last one, I apologize if you could hear that wicked echo that we had. Today we're talking about a video that I saw on Andrew Huberman's channel about testosterone and energy levels, and how you can double your testosterone through specific parameters of workouts. So, through working out, and specifically, he's chatting to this fellow here. I don't know who it is. And in going through the description of the video, I couldn't find his name. Andrew Huberman references that he is a PhD holder. And he's talking about basically doing a very specific workout parameters, which is 6 sets of 10 reps with a 2-minute rest to increase testosterone production in the body. And I was talking to Yanni about it. We were having a little discussion, and Yanni was sharing his thoughts on it. And I thought, hey, we both thought, let's do a show on this. This is something that our audience might be interested in. It's certainly something that I'm interested in. Being 45 years old, testosterone production is naturally on the decline for somebody Yanni and my age. And so I'm all about, figuring out ways to naturally boost testosterone. So what are your thoughts, Yanni? What were your initial thoughts on this concept of 6 sets of 10 reps with a 2-minute rest to increase testosterone production?
Well, I've got a number of things that I want to interject because I'm sitting here having a little personal debate in my head as to whether what the gentleman there suggests what they did in their study. And I'm thinking, could I actually even do that? Because they use very specific numbers. And at first I thought that's got to be a mistake. 6 sets of 10 reps at 80% of your max
of your 1 RM,
maximum,
yeah,
which is a lot. I think it would be very hard to do 60 reps total at 80% max 1 RM.
Yeah, I agree.
It broken into 6 sets. But then when I listened to it right through, he said that they actually had to basically do what's referred to as a drop set, because what was most important was that every athlete or participant got the 10 reps every set, and a lot of them couldn't finish the 10 reps. So they would actually take weight off the bar to allow them to get their last few reps, which is otherwise known as a drop set, and so I'm just looking at what they make a very good point of is that the metabolic damage that's caused to the muscle body itself is what tends to secrete testosterone, triggers the endocrine system to produce more testosterone. And yeah, I think that I don't think anyone's going to argue that. But what they make a very valid point is that the rest interval, and I think that's the general lesson in the video, or key point in the video is that the longer rep range, the longer rest intervals between sets can have a negative impact on the body's testosterone production. Now, and that's because you tend to get less metabolic damage to the tissue. Now, that's debatable because there's a lot of new research now, which I believe has only been published in the last few years, that suggests that it's actually not as much the rest interval and more so the tempo of the eccentric contraction that causes the metabolic damage, that triggers the damage to the muscle tissue. And so I do think that there's a couple of contentious points in this video that I would have to dig a bit deeper into, and I haven't really had time. But the other thing that I think is really important to note is that the numbers that they use are quite arbitrary, because as your training age increases, your 80% one rep maximum will come down, meaning, for instance, someone who can squat one rep for 400 kilos is not going to be able to do 10 reps at 340, 80% of 400.
Something like that.
Quickly punch it into a calculator. Like this is the thing. It changes dramatically as your strength increases. And so I think here, like my one rep max in a squat at the moment is probably only about 160 kilos. But I don't think I could do 10 reps at 80% of that for 6 sets. Like that's an enormous.
I'll work out what 80%
amount of
what's 160 is.
I don't do public math. Public math
it's 128.
128. Yeah, I would struggle. I it would depend what tempo, of course, because tempo is really going to affect this a lot, But that's the one thing that they don't talk about at all in that entire piece is the tempo. And, you do a set of 10 with a 4-second eccentric contraction. You're not lifting, you're going to struggle to lift 80% of your one rep max for that set. If you're just banging the reps out with a very slow eccentric tempo, then maybe you'll get it. But then I would argue that the more recent research would sort of stipulate that that's going to dramatically decrease the amount of metabolic damage to the tissue, and thus probably decrease the amount of testosterone production. And then there's another macro argument that one could take, which is that, building muscle strength is arguably more important. And, I've got friends who are powerlifters who are enormously strong. I very much doubt they would do 10 reps often. Maybe if they feel like doing a cardio workout, they'd do a 10 rep set, or as a supplementary or a complementary auxiliary exercise, they might do a 10 rep set, but I don't think it would happen very often. And I don't think these guys have any problem with testosterone. Mind you, there's probably some exogenous tests being taken too. Rad, what do you think?
Yeah, look, what I got from this, for me, it made me reconsider like rest periods and, how long I take for rest periods, because rest is a really important part of your workout, and it's an important part of periodization. Like do you call it intra set rest periods or intra workout rest periods? Was that the
yeah?
So meaning that
inter rest period. Intra would be between a superset.
Yeah, right. Okay. Inter set rest periods or inter
method.
And look, whatever the correct terminology for it is, the rest you take between sets in a workout, and there's this like if you want to be able to lift more weight, your body requires more recovery between sets. If you want to do that for set after set after set, and there's there is an argument to be had that if you're doing an accumulation cycle, to fit more in, because there's that whole thing about getting into that catabolic state, like when you work out for more than 60 minutes or 90 minutes, that your body starts to go into this catabolic state, and you've got this sort of window to stay in an anabolic state. And it just made me start thinking about that again. And when I do my intensification cycles, I always do, and what we do in the UMS is, working antagonistic movements together. So if I'm doing a dip, I'm pairing it with a pull-up, or if I'm doing a chest press or a push-up, I'm pairing it with a row. And I was allowing my rest periods to kind of just go for as long as it took me to do my stretches between my sets. And after I watched this video, I did a cycle where for my accumulation training, so I was doing 5 sets of 8 reps, where I was really strict on those 2-minute rest periods. And it was a very different feeling workout. I got a lot done in a short amount of time, and then I moved into an intensification phase where I blew the rest period out to 3 minutes, and that was a really nice change for me. So that's what it did for me. It just made me reconsider how long I have for my rest periods. And I think if you want to naturally increase testosterone, then definitely increasing muscle mass and increasing the like I've listened to Ben Pakulski recently talking about how to increase testosterone naturally, and it seems to be a consensus of people that have far more muscle mass than you and I have, that the stress that you put on your body during a resistance training session is something that stimulates the production of testosterone naturally. So by putting more stress, by lifting heavier weights, that was what Ben's message was. It was, you need to lift high intensity, like doing sets of 15 reps or more doesn't have the same response as doing sets of 5 reps or maximum 8 reps, for example. So yeah, that's what that's
what they seem to point out. They point out 2 points, and before we go any further, I just want to say I really do appreciate Andrew Huberman. I love his podcast. I tend to watch everything he does more than once, and I think he's an absolute beast. And I think he's a really humble guy too, the way he approaches interviewing people, because he takes a very subjective stance on things, and he tends to just learn.
Don't you mean objective?
Objective, sorry. Yeah, he a very open-minded position. And he doesn't tend to form a strong opinion either way. He just looks at the research and looks at the data, But there was just a few things that was said by the other gentleman in here that I just had to really get my head around. One of them is the amount of sheer volume in that, and I think that those numbers are going to change dramatically for a very strong person. I think that for an untrained individual, it's very easy to lift 10 reps at 80% of your 1 rep max, because your 1 rep max is really small. You like it's let's say, okay, hypothetically, if my 1 rep max was 100 kilos on a back squat, and they're talking about a barbell back squat here, so it's a multi-joint compound movement that's highly taxing on the nervous system. Your 10 reps on a decent back squat, anyone who's a lifter, it's a workout, like your cardiovascular system is tested doing 10 reps on a heavy back squat, and then doing that for 6 sets. It's, you're going to build up an enormous amount of accumulative fatigue. And they do talk about that, by the 3rd or 4th set, those 2-minute breaks that they're talking about that are really important are going to start to feel really short, and you're going to be really struggling. And then he even does go so far as to say that they did have to deload the bar during the set. So effectively doing a drop set without any pause, without any rest, so the athletes or the participants in the study could complete those 10 reps for every set. Now, they do make a point of saying that the testosterone side of things, separate to developing maximal strength. So we're not talking about the best protocol for maximal strength. There's no debate that intensity requires much lower rep ranges, below 5. And I don't think anyone's going to debate that. 1 to 5 reps for multiple sets to develop maximal strength. But for the purposes of upregulating testosterone, what they do make a point of here is that it's really a mix between intensity and metabolic damage. And the one thing that I would just argue that I don't think was mentioned here, and I didn't even look at when this video was published. I'm trying to see that now, but I can't see it.
I'll find it for you.
It's a month ago. It's only a month ago, so it's recent. It's very recent. Yeah, they don't mention anything about. They make a very big point about metabolic damage being a major factor here, contributing factor, but they don't mention tempo at all, which I found quite surprising. Because I've just read a bunch of info on that being a really important factor in causing metabolic damage to the tissue and inducing muscular hypertrophy. You really need to slow down those eccentric tempos. And I mean, test it for yourself. Go do a workout where you do a 2-second eccentric, which is not much at all. That's quite a quick rep. And then do a 4-second eccentric and tell me which one makes you sorer the next day. I'll guarantee you it's the 4-second eccentric. And that's why the late Charles Poliquin and people like that are such big proponents of slowing down tempo. Ian King as well,
I definitely agree with what you said earlier, with the concept of like doing 6 sets of 10 at 8 RM. Like a really simple equation for that would be that if you could do a 100 kilo 1 RM back squat, then you're doing 80 kilograms here. And to do 10 reps at 80 kilos at 80% of your 1 RM, man, I don't think I'd be able to do that for more than one set. So
for 6 sets.
For 6 sets. So I think maybe that the 80% of 1 RM that's going to be dramatically reduced from set to set. You wouldn't be able to maintain. I don't know many people that would be able to maintain that for 6 sets. But again, going back to what I took out of this and what I think anybody can take out of this, because this is certainly what I got from it. It was just a consideration of, it's like Yanni said, it's like training at an intensity that is, because if we remove the numbers, okay, if we remove that 6 sets of 10 reps at 80% of 1 RM, if we remove that from it, the other message that he's talking about in this video is that he's basically talking about that the goal of it is to elicit high metabolic damage, right? Like we're trying to get a reaction from the endocrine system by putting a lot of stress on the metabolic system. Now, if you take those numbers out, what I got out of that was that when I train for, like, this is how periodization works as well, because I wouldn't do this all the time. Like, we periodize. So I did a cycle where my goal was to do high metabolic damage, but I was doing 5 sets of 8 reps, and I don't know if it certainly wasn't 80% of my 1 RM, that's for sure, but it was at that 95% of my max effort. Like I had to even, I was able to, like I was doing weighted push-ups, deficit push-ups. So I had a weight belt with a weight attached to it, and I was doing a deficit so that I could go full range of motion. And by the time I got to the 4th and 5th set, I had to drop the weight. I couldn't maintain 8 reps at the weight I was. So I was at my upper limit, but I stuck to that 2-minute rest period. And I was doing antagonistic movements, and that was a great workout for me. That really got me sweating. And then after I did my supplementary exercises, I was just totally cooked. So, and then I went into an intensification phase where my goal was to build, max strength. And so what I took out of this was, it was a reminder that, rest period, that metabolic damage during workouts, that there's a place for that it's not just about lifting as much as you can, and it's not just about, like, in an intensification phase, and it's not just about doing an accumulation phase where you allow yourself to rest for as long as you can, that, being very specific with a very set rest period. And in all honesty, I hadn't had a set 2-minute rest period for a long time. That was really challenging. Like what I did was I set a timer for 1:40, so that when my timer went off and I was like, bang, okay. And by the time I went over, put my weight belt on and got into my next set, I was on that 2 minute mark or less. You know, I never went over 2 minutes, and that was really challenging. It was a great cycle for me to do. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it.
Well, and the observation that I've made training with some of the best bodybuilding coaches in the world, like Charles Poliquin, like Ben Pakulski, Tony Battaji, is that they're very diligent with their rest interval. I think the take home here for people who are, getting into their training and may not be as experienced, is that the rest period, generally the shorter the rest period, and let's say I wouldn't go shorter than 60 seconds, unless you're doing like fat loss training, is going to upregulate that testosterone and also metabolic damage to the tissue. But the tempo in each set, within each set, is also as important. It's, you really can't be bouncing out of reps and doing them really quickly if you want to cause the maximum amount of stress to the body. You need to slow down that eccentric and control the load. The next big thing that I think they sort of brush over here, which I definitely think is important for the sort of untrained individual, or at least the person getting into lifting and really wants to maximize the time they spend exercising, is that the big compound movements, like the back squat that they talk about here, like the bench press, like the deadlift, like the chin up, these are the movements that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. Like, you cannot expect the same results if you're doing a whole bunch of isolated movements, like, chest flies and bicep curls and leg extensions and things like that. Those movements, I think, should be used as supplementary, to complement the work you do in those big compound movements. But it's the big compound movements that are going to cause the maximum amount of stress to the body. So learn how to do them, learn how to do them right. Because if you're going to take yourself to failure like these guys are doing here, and that's what he's suggested, they've gone to failure and they've had to take weight off the bar to be able to complete those 10 reps. That's a set to failure. Then you've got to know what you're doing. You can't be doing a back squat to failure if you can't do a back squat really, really well. And for that reason, you need to have banked hundreds, if not thousands, of good quality reps prior to condition the body. Because if your form is breaking down during that set, you're putting yourself at risk of muscle spasms and acute muscle spasms that are going to be far greater than just a little bit of delayed onset muscle soreness after a workout. And then you're going to, fall into that category of people who say, oh, I can't do squats or I can't do deadlifts because it hurts my back or it hurts, something. So just be aware of that and train safe. And then remember that as your strength increases, your 80% is going to change. The rep range is going to change. What elicits that level of stimulus for your body is going to change. To do 10 reps at 80% for me is extremely difficult now. And I can only imagine that people stronger than me, power lifters, are probably going to say the same thing and agree. Like, that's very difficult. So the numbers are somewhat arbitrary. Unless you're an absolute beginner, like that, as your training age increases, your 1 rep max, your rep ranges should decrease with time. Like, I seldom do more than 7 or 8 reps in a set.
Yeah.
10 to 12 is something I used to do 10, 15 years ago.
Do you never do more than 8 reps for supplementaries? Are you ever doing more than 8 for supplementaries?
Sometimes. Like, if I get the weight wrong. Yeah. And I go,
I'm the same.
I didn't, but I target 8. Yep. For my supplementaries, I target 6 to 8.
Yeah.
And for my primaries, I'm doing 3 to 5
and
or 3 to 6.
For anybody,
7.
For anybody listening, if you're wondering why that is, it's because of what we were talking about before, about this idea of, creating this metabolic response through, a high level of stress to the system. And when you go above 8 reps, and we're always talking about with good technique. But when you go above 8 reps, the stress on the system isn't enough to get the same response as, when you go 8 reps or less. Now, you can do it. There's I'm doing right now, Yanni, I'm doing, because I'm really working on building muscle in my chest, and I'm doing a program where I'm doing a descending intensity from Monday to Friday, where on Monday I'm doing high intensity, so 5 reps or less. On Wednesday, I'm doing moderate intensity, 8 reps. And then on Friday, I'm doing low intensity, massive volume, where I'm doing 10 sets of 30 reps of an isolated exercise. And this is so there's different ways that you can do this, but what's really important, what I want to say to back up what Yanni's saying is using periodization and using, being specific on the rep ranges that you're doing and on the movements that you're doing and doing them with quality. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is a lot of people watch videos on YouTube and watch what people are doing, and they forget the importance of quality of everything that you're doing. And, when you're doing your compound lifts first, like I've seen people do where they do big compound lifts much later in the workout after I've watched them do, bicep curls and things like that. And it's very, very hard to do good quality shoulder press and pull-ups after you've done, 4 sets or 5 sets of bicep curls. You usually put it's much smarter in our opinion to put the big compound lifts first when you're fresh, so that you can do good quality, and then you move into those simpler isolated exercises.
Supplementary and complementary. And the other thing that I probably notice, I think that I'm training in a big public gym now, and I would probably argue that the majority of people that I observe wouldn't be taking enough rest. They tend to bang out their 10 reps on the bench press, and then they sort of go straight into the next exercise, or like I think that the untrained individual probably needs to focus more on giving themselves enough recovery between sets. That's 60 seconds to 2 minutes. 90 seconds is a good rep, a good set. A good recovery break. Doing
antagonistic movements. I think that's something that there's a lot of room for growth that the untrained individual isn't capitalizing on by doing straight sets. And straight sets is where you, like if you're doing your chest press, you do chest press, you rest, then you do chest press again, rest, chest press again until you finished all your chest press, and then you move on to something else. But if you pair your chest pressing with a bent over row or a ring row, for example, when you're training antagonistic movement muscles and movements, there's several things that occur that are really, really beneficial. One of them is that you increase flexibility because the nature of the way that you create fatigue in the pushing movements and then you strengthen the pulling movements, it allows for greater range of motion in those pulling movements and you create more flexibility. But you give yourself more rest time before you go. So if you were to do chest press, rest 2 minutes and chest press versus chest press, rest 90 seconds, row, rest 90 seconds, chest press, you get more done and you get your your whole upper body trained in that one workout. A lot of people are missing out on that one, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, hope you got something out of this. This is our first podcast and live stream in a while. So if you've got any questions for us before we leave, just put them in the comments. And if you want to connect with us and know more about what we do, head over to unitygym.com. Where we
smash the like button.
Yeah, smash that like button.
We got 7 people on here and 7 likes, so that's a good. A good.
Yeah, 7 people, 7 likes. We do
100% satisfaction.
Yanni loves that.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. And if you're listening to the podcast, please give us a review, and we will see you next time.
Take care, guys.